again, to all of our loyal listeners, my name is Priscilla.
And my name is Jessie.
And welcome to another episode of
Nenas Hangout! The studio lights dim, the music starts, and you feel the rhythm take over your body. Each move is a release, a way to channel every emotion. Joy, pain, love, heartbreak. For dancers, the floor isn't just a space, it's a sanctuary, a diary, a stage to confront the world and themselves. But what happens when the music fades and you're left with the silence? When the mirrors you've grown so used to reflecting strength suddenly feel like they magnify every insecurity.
Today, we're diving into the intricate dance between movement and mental health. How does the art form we love so deeply heal us, and how can it also challenge us in ways we never expect? We'll explore how dancers use their craft as a lifeline, and how sometimes we struggle to keep the music playing in our minds.
Whether you're a performer, a creative spirit, or someone who's ever felt the weight of the world and sought out an outlet to process it all, this episode is just for you. So grab your headphones and let's take a step into this powerful conversation.
Help us welcome today's guest, someone who knows firsthand what it's like to navigate the highs and lows of a demanding career while prioritizing mental health. Adony is a creative force known not just for his talent, but for his authenticity and courage in sharing his story. As a professional artist and advocate, Adony has faced the pressures of success, the weight of expectations, and the challenges of balancing passion with self-care. He's here to talk about his journey, what it takes to stay grounded, and how we can all prioritize our well-being in a world that often asks us to keep pushing. Welcome to the show, Adony. Oh my God. Finally, we get to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Season 3.
Yes, our first guest of season 3. I cannot believe it's been over a year. No, it's going to be a year,
Yeah, a year.
Wow. But yes, thank you so much. So let's start off by telling us a little bit more about your year. How did 2024 treat you?
Well, 2024 was rough. 2024 did try to kill me.
Oh my God.
No, I'm just kidding. No. It was a mixture of highs and lows. Very much a learning year. The first half was a lot of realization, a lot of hard, feelings and emotions to navigate. If you ever have experienced this, hitting a rock bottom, and being told, you need help, and like navigating hard emotions, separations, growing pains, and then feelings that you've never really had to face before head on. And then the second half of the year, having to heal from those and learn from those emotions. So it was a lot of firsts, for sure. From the usual joy and sunshine that one normally deals with, then you have those harder times and those harder emotions. So 2024 was a lot of that, a lot of healing.
And I feel like people think that once you hit your adult life, like the learnings kind of stop, but it's not true. There's always, I feel like life is a spiral. Like, yes, you might feel depression at the age of 16, but depression at the age of, 35 can look very different.
Yeah.
And so, it's like a spiral because it is the same issue, but it's at a different level, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
But I feel like it, obviously, like healing, it also teaches you to be stronger for the next time that it comes, and hopefully they don't come too often, but I do feel like after you learn and after you go through healing, it just makes you stronger for what's to come.
And the hard part about that is you are going through it first, and you don't realize it until it's over, or until you make it to the other side of it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why I had to experience that, and that's why I had to go through that. So
it's hard to see the bigger picture sometimes.
Exactly.
So I want to ask you something. You said that it got to the point where someone else told you need help. Was that a friend? Like, who was that, if you don't mind me asking?
It was a group of friends, actually.
Yeah.
So just picture, a group of the people that you care and love the most, sitting you down and having you face the hard reality of, we're here for you. You are not okay. You yeah. So it's a hard reality to face. It's tough because you're resistant to those emotions, and you never want to be told that you're in the position that you're in, and you never think that life is going to catch up to you, you know, sometimes, and, you know, the decisions you make leading up to that, what it looks like from an outside perspective to your friends and loved ones. So that was a tough pill to swallow for sure, but it was much needed. And I think about it a lot now, and where I would probably be if we didn't have that conversation, or I didn't have to face that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to surround yourself with people that truly look out for you. Yes.
Yes.
And as a friend, I feel like I would call you in instead of calling you out. You know, I think there's a difference between like, okay, let's in community hug each other and come here. You need a hug. I love you.
Yes.
But something's happening. Whereas it could be very toxic, and some friends can be like, you didn't text me, where have you been this time, you know? So it can be two different approaches, but I'm so glad that you had that community.
Yeah, I did take it personally at first, and like I didn't react so positively, and I lashed out like in defense, thinking that I took it a little too personally, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes our egos are like our biggest enemies, in the sense of, how dare you tell me like that I'm not okay, when like, you know, like, and what about you and your issues, and like, and so you never, and it was like, it shed me in a different light that I've never seen myself in before. It was scary almost.
What are the signs that they told you? What were the personal signs that you saw when it came to like your mental health, that you were like, oh, red flag, yellow flag?
Yeah, I think it was the way I was communicating with my friends, and the way that I was, you know, speaking to them, or, you know, also work as well. Signs of like not doing so well at work either. So it was like in all areas. I also lashed out like at some friends very spontaneously. So I think when you see that, you're like, whoa, that's not like him. That's not usually like how he is. So, I mean, probably amongst each other, you know, you realize, hey, I don't think he's doing so well. And those are all signs, right? So, yeah.
You know, this reminds me of, there's this saying that said, sometimes the people that need the most love ask for it in very like unloving ways. So it sounds like maybe you were doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And man, I just think people pleasing for so long too can really catch up to you, and like you don't let yourself experience other emotions, like anger for one. So like you can give and be so loving to others, and then be upset when maybe you don't get that in return, or you do get that in return, or it's not enough, and like you're longing for something else.
You think it kind of helps build resentment, because like you're people pleasing all the time, you're just focusing on them, and then whenever they don't reciprocate, or maybe they don't reciprocate in the way that we're expecting, it's kind of like, well, damn, look at what I'm doing, and this and this and this. And
yeah, exactly. And you kind of look for that, reciprocation. Yeah, or balance, But you can't always expect others to show up the way that you need them to. Sometimes it goes a lot deeper than like, what do I really need? And is it really like the validation from everybody, you know, or is it something else, you know?
And once you realized that, what steps did you take to, you know, be able to get out of that mindset?
So it was really tough. I actually had to go to a mental care facility, actually. So I got admitted, and I was there for about 8 days. And so it was it was more like, you have no choice now. Like, you have to seek professional help. So it wasn't like, I tried to like help myself in the, like by myself, but then you need a professional help. And you need to be monitored, and you need medication, and it's just a lot of that you have to go through. And it's different emotions, because you never expect yourself to end up in that position, right? You have your freedom stripped away from you a little bit, and you're like, what am I doing here? I don't deserve to be here. And you're also in denial, you know? So, you're like, what? Like, one day you're at home, and the next day you're waking up And
Yes.
so you're there, and it's like, wow, well, this is where I've come. So I was there for a week, yeah, and with everybody else. I actually had a dream about it the other
Really?
day because that I was back. But it was fine. Like, it's just like I look back at it now, and I did everything I could in that experience to soak up everything that they were trying to teach me. And they have you really reflect.
Yeah.
It's a lot of in-house therapy, help, and then you have other people who are in the same shoes as you who are going through the same things.
Yeah.
So you're like, it kind of gives you some insight into, it's not just me.
What did you learn from there that you think you're still practicing now? That like helped you reflect, that helped you know.
Boundaries. I think before there, I was a yes man, and I would say yes to everything, never, say no. And a lot of that can lead you to your breaking point sometimes if you cut yourself too thin or sell yourself too short. So boundaries. And then speaking out about what you need. Like a lot of the times, like we're scared to say what it is that we need out of people or from what we want from a relationship. So speaking up, I think, even if it is hard to do, or even if it's hurting feelings, or it's uncomfortable. Yes. So yeah,
It's tough, yeah. Talking about mental health, it's like definitely like one of the toughest conversations that isn't talked about enough. And with that being said, did you have any stigmas when admitted to the facility? Did your family have any stigmas? Do you see like that going to a place like that as something negative?
at first it may feel like it, because again, you're like in denial. But the stigmas, I think, one, it was secretive at first. Like, not everybody in my circle knew that I was there.
Okay.
Only very close relatives. My mom, she didn't even know. We just told her that I was getting help.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So she didn't even know where I was at for a whole week. And then you have visitation, and you're very selective of who can come see you, and who can contact you, and who can call you. So yeah, I think I started seeing it as a negative at first, but then after I was finished with it, it was a positive. It was very helpful. It was very much needed. You isolate yourself from the world for a while. You don't have your phone. You're not digesting, the outside world. You are not caved in, but closed in a private setting where you can deal with the things that you need to deal with and close doors.
Yeah. In a safe space. It's a safe space.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It really is.
Where do you think that negative connotation comes from when it comes to mental health and like being admitted or being labeled as that?
People will be like, oh, he's crazy. That's the narrative sometimes. Like, you think, oh, you've been in a facility like that, you are no longer deemed normal, or you are out of touch with reality, or, so that especially.
You can select who gets to call you, who gets to see you, who you get to talk to and stuff outside of this facility. Can I ask you who those people were, and like if they were family or they were just close friends, like that became family? Like, obviously I'm assuming that these are people that you genuinely trust and that you don't care what kind of version they see of you. So that's like, what qualities do they have for you to be able to be that comfortable with them?
It was strictly family, for sure. I needed in that moment that unconditional love of no judgment. Like, they're seeing me in a different light, right? And it's scary for me. So you needed to be, like, for me it was cousins or my sister. I had no friends come in because, well, I didn't want to feel embarrassed, or, I also felt like a little resentful, because I don't know if like I had them to blame for me being in the situation. So in that moment, I didn't want any of them to see me in that light. So in that moment, I needed family. And the people who were calling me were just family as well. So yeah.
Do you think, because we have, as in the Latino community, we have this negative connotation, like I said before, of like mental health. Did you feel that? Do you think there was like a cultural, like, block or challenge that you had to overcome, or no, not really?
Not really, only because when I met some people in there, they came from the similar backgrounds as me. And I mean, there's all different types of people there. So
Yes.
I think from a newer generation, mental health is like seen as less outrageous as like the older generation may see. Like they don't understand it, you know?
Yeah.
So like if I were to tell my mom that I was there, she'd be like, why? You know, like what is so bad
No,
that
he
you
says
have
it,
to,
so, like, you don't need that.
exactly. But then you understand it at the age that you're at, and you're like, this is actually something serious. Like a lot of the times they come from an older background, so they neglect that kind of part of their life, and they just keep it pushing, you know. And that kind of passes on to generations as well, and it passes down to you and siblings perhaps. And so we are the ones having to kind of pick up the pieces and break also generational curses.
That is so true.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
How did your mom eventually like help you and accepted everything that happened?
So
Your parents.
it was very vague at first. Like we didn't really talk about it too much, because I also was like, I didn't expect her to understand. But I think something good that came out of it was that I saw her change in ways that she hadn't been before. Yeah. And a lot of the things that I was scared to talk to her about, I was suddenly forthcoming about. And like, even like things like my sexuality and like things that I would never say to her, like I finally said, and like she was fine with it. I no longer felt like judged. I no longer felt restricted or shunned out by her. We have a closer relationship now because I think I'm seeing the bigger picture. And I think a lot of the times I used to shun her out, or I used to be secretive, or not say everything. Sometimes when you're surface level with your parents, and you're like, they don't need to know everything. But then when you get really deep with them, they kind of surprise you. Like, so
How has your mom surprised you? What are one of those, like, other than, I know you said your sexuality, but like...
She's more receptive to my emotions, like hearing me out and like how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way. And just more receptive to what's going on with me. Like a lot of the times our parents, like they take care of us on a physical level, but no, sometimes the emotional level, like sometimes you don't really show them that side to you, because you also don't want to show weakness, or you also you don't want them to feel like you're blaming them for anything as well. So it's her being more open to that.
That is beautiful to hear, because I feel like I'm also struggling with that right now with my parents. There's a power imbalance, right? And sometimes you don't really, you see your parents, or you grow up seeing your parents, and the way I was raised, it was like, you don't know anything, I know everything, you're the kid in this relationship, you're not an equal. And so like to break that is like, it takes so many years. But I'm so happy you were able, it's sad that it came to that point, that breaking point that made you change. But hopefully through these talks, we can see that like, you don't have to get there to start these conversations. You can take the first step if your parents are receptive to that, because sometimes parents can be like
not so
not
open to
into this at all,
because it can tell them a lot about themselves as well and how they deal with it. So it takes them also diving in deep a little too, and be like, have that hard conversation and let's have a chat,
Yes.
So but I don't blame her for any of it. I think I was given a little too much freedom at one point in my life. So I was making decisions that were not the healthiest for me. And when you don't have anybody there to stop you, like to be like, hey, that's wrong. It's just go, go, go. Then sometimes that's when it catches up to you. But maybe if you're close to a parent where you tell them everything, maybe you have a little more room for them to be like, hey, maybe that's not so healthy.
Well, your parents, were they strict with you when you were growing up?
My mom was. My dad was not. He was, if like, do your thing, do whatever you want, buy you whatever you want, like very, also scared to be too emotional. you know. So when you have so
And we were both like, oh, look, that makes sense.
but yes, but my mom, we grew up very religious, and so she also was very it was black and white on like what was right and what was wrong. And my sister set the preface of the rebellion like early on. Like she was the one who was kind of breaking the rules, and I was following the rules growing up, and I was scared to like go against my mom, and like, so I was like a mama's boy like that. But you grow older and you kind of start making your own decisions, and you're like, okay, I'm a free bird now. Like especially when you move out.
Yeah,
like especially
adulting.
Yeah, you learn
like,
so much about yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, and you get to understand your parents a little bit better.
A little bit better. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you mentioned something that I was like, whoa, I need to ask, and that's how does gender play into mental health? Because I think like there's a difference between how women deal with it, not to make it so black and white, but I think there are differences. I feel like we don't talk enough about like men and their mental health. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, because men, like, women, like, we always hear this, but we have each other, right? To tell each other, like, and trust within
Like
each other.
sisterhood is so strong.
Exactly.
strong.
But for guys, they really just like keep it to themselves. Like they don't want to tell anyone how they're feeling because like something that you said earlier is like they don't want to look weak.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So, oh my God, yeah, exactly. And that's something I'm jealous of, like, girls about. Like, y'all have each other, like you said, and y'all aren't scared to have those conversations. But with men, we will distract ourselves, whether that be with work, whether that be with drinking, drug use, or even if you're, like, in a relationship as well, like, you know, not being transparent with your partner, or, you know, not having those hard conversations. And then they suffer the consequences of you not being able to communicate or challenge your own emotions as well. So guys, we are always told like, no, this is not right. And I don't even know how many guys are going to therapy right now, but it's so important. And it's also sad too, because we see a lot of guys also like take their lives as well, because of trouble that they're dealing with that they're scared to open up about. So especially also how their parents see them and like how they want to be viewed, because they're supposed to be these macho men who have it together. But we got problems too.
We do. We're both humans. Sometimes I feel like in certain areas I do notice that women can be louder and take a little bit too much space. So I think I'm trying to deconstruct my mind to look at everyone. Regardless, gender is important, sexuality is important, it needs to be visible. Women are still paid less, you know, we have all these social things that are going on. But at the same time, like, it doesn't take anything to be empathetic and look at like the other side as well, and understand that they also go through struggles. And I see it with my dad. I see it with like my partner. I see it with a lot of men that it's so heartbreaking. And so as a society, yes, I think we need to be better at having those conversations with men and creating those spaces for men.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah. Because it's sad, but honestly, the few men that I do know that have cried to me and stuff, which honestly, like, I see it as an honor sometimes, that, like, because it's not like they cry all the time, but the one time that I did see them, I was like, damn, like, it didn't make me think less of them. If anything, I was just like, wow, like, I didn't know all of this was, like, was in your heart, you know, like, all of this pain. And whenever I've told, like, some people that I guess don't, like, in the old thinking, the old ways, whatever, they're like, a man shouldn't cry and this and that and da-da-da, and it's like,
they should be
why?
providers.
Like, and it's like, why not? Like, what's so wrong with crying? Like, it doesn't make them weak. And I have heard it, like, also from my partner that, you know, if a girl, and from my guy friends as well, that if a girl hears the guy just, like, ranting too much or being so vulnerable, like, or being weak, like, we're gonna think less of them. And that's not the case at all. And I'm sorry if you have been around women that have made you feel like that, but it's not bad to cry. Like, for a guy, it's okay to feel pain. It's okay to not be okay, because like you said, we're all human, and it doesn't cost anything to show some empathy towards one another.
And you would be surprised at how much that helps to like unload like and unpack. Like our emotions surprise us sometimes. And you feel so much better after. I've had a good cry from time to time, whether it be a joyful cry or coming from a place of sadness or grief, because we all go through stages of grief from time to time as well. So that's also like an emotion that I had to deal with. And there's the anger, there's the bargaining, there's the you're in denial, you know. So a lot of that, it's okay to feel, and it's part of life, it's part of growth, it's part of, you know, your emotional journey as well. And props to any guy who is not afraid to cry to their girl or, you know, or to their parents, like, as well, you know.
Like, in one way or another, they're being honest with themselves as well. Like, this is truly how I feel, and it's kind of like, I hear you, and, you know, I'm here for you. So let us do that for you.
Yes. Let us in. Literally, like.
One of the questions that I want to ask is, and I don't know if it's too personal, but what are your thoughts on medication? Do you see it as an aid for mental health? Do you see it as a crutch? Like, what are your thoughts?
I feel like it's like I know this is here to help me, but also part of it makes you feel like it is kind of a crutch. And then especially if you're dealing with like side effects of it, or you feel like you're not operating on the same level as you used to before it, and so you kind of like start to like rebel against your medication as well, and you're like, I don't need that, I feel fine. So like a lot of the times it's seen as both, but I realized that when I stopped taking it, like I would have like later it would like kind of catch up to you, and like you start to feel like, oh, maybe I do need that. Because the point of medication is like, if it's helping you, it feels like it's not doing anything, right? So you're like, I don't feel anything. Like, like, what is this supposed to be doing exactly?
But it is actually doing things. It's doing its magic in the background.
It is. So it was a lot of that, and that's something I'm still dealing with, like today. Like, do I need this? Yes, I do. But do I want to take it? No. Like, and you have your follow-ups with your doctors, and they're like, how's everything? Like, are you still taking it? And so you never want to be like the person that's like lying to their doctor. Like,
that is true.
The short period in which you didn't take it, like, what did you notice? You're like, oh, maybe I do need medicine. Like, what made you go back to it?
So I have episodes of what's called psychosis, where you're kind of out of touch with reality. You start to have these delusions, and your way of thinking and the way that you see the world changes. You become paranoid, especially if you are somebody who's like, oh, the world is out to get me, or people are out to get me, or there's some kind of ulterior motives that people have, or, you know, like, you become guarded and like scared and afraid. So I would have those, and that's what kind of led me to go also to the hospital. It's like I would see people differently, even if they're trying to help. So that's what I noticed, like, immediately. Like, when I stopped taking my medication, that becomes apparent, and then it interferes with your day-to-day, like your relationships with loved ones, and you can also end up hurting them, or work, or friends. So that's something that, like, I had to learn how to control as well.
You had said something earlier that I kind of want to go back to. You said we grew up religious. Are you still religious, or do you feel like you have your own connection with God? Like, were you mad at God whenever you were in there? And I'm just asking so that, you know, like, so that I know, because I personally, like, I have my own battles, right, with, you know, with God and, like, my relationship with Him. And there are times in which I doubt Him, in which I, you know, get to that mindset of, why is this happening to me? And, like, what, you know, so I wonder how that looks for you, and how that
it brought me so much closer to Him, actually. I used to be so skeptical, and like I used to, because it was kind of shoved down our throats, like during my childhood, and my mom, I used to be like, no, you know, or I would have my reservations, right? But part of me, the other part of me is like, I do believe in it. and I am spiritual. And now more than ever, like in times where I was in a rut and like felt like darkness surrounding me, and like you being at like, you know, in dark times, you start to look at the optimistic side of it, and you start to pray more, and you start to have conversations with God. And so yeah, it brought me so much closer to him. And like, I wasn't always like that at all. Even my algorithm picked up on it on Instagram. And so I see like a lot of users who affirm positive messages after dealing with hurt, and like how, you know, God helps you through those dark times.
There's a reason why religion has been part of the human experience for so long, because we need something to believe in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of people, it's God. You know, for other people, it may be something more spiritual, maybe other philosophies out there. But I think every person needs to have that one thing that keeps your faith going, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It can be religious or not, but it does bring some light and some purpose to just life in general.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to tie everything back to dance. And okay, we talked a little bit about like your mental health process, and one question that we had for you was what passions that you found outside of dance, or it could be dance itself, have helped you through dark times?
Ooh.
Yes.
So definitely journaling and writing down your thoughts and your emotions helped a lot, because you would be surprised at like what you unpack about yourself or what you're feeling when you're putting it down on paper, right? So yeah, I don't know if y'all do that as well. A lot of reading as well. Like I used to push reading to the side, but now like my therapist gave me some like good recommendations on books, and so reading about self-help and like diving into that. Also like books about like codependency and like grief and like emotions that entail with that. And then also just enjoying outside of dance, like the little things, right? Like taking yourself out for walks, or enjoying, you know, nature, or, you know, so I did a lot of that, and like isolating a little bit as well. So you kind of take some time for yourself. I also sought refuge in a lot of therapy as well. Me and my therapist are like,
a good therapist makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah. And so she has been a rock in all of this too. So it's been a lot of that, and a lot about like speaking up too.
I wanted to ask, you said something about like, you know, treating yourself, taking yourself out. How has self-care changed over the course of your life? Because self-care can look very different as a teenager to now, before and after your experience. So yeah.
Self-care before for me was, I guess, what typical, you know, sometimes other people may partake in. For me, it was a lot of drinking. I also, you know, drug use as well. And also, you know, going out and spending and overspending. And so things like that, like before, like I used to do that a lot more. When you grow up, you start to look at it a different way, and you're like, okay, maybe that's not the right way to take care of myself, right? So like maybe more healthy habits. And so you start to rewire your brain, and you're like, instead of this, let me do this. And instead of that, let me do this. And so that it's not so self-destructive, and like it's not unhealthy for you. And your growth as well. And I still partake in some of them, like not drugs, but but like I'll have a drink, you know, from time to time now. But
come to the club every once in a while.
But now I'm limiting myself, and like I'm going home earlier, I'm going to bed sooner. You know, I'm not always saying yes to going out. Like and then also your circles maybe as well, they become a little smaller. You kind of grow apart from some relationships that maybe aren't, you know, in your best interest anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? On like the relationships? Did you have to let go of people where people just like, never mind, you're too much to deal with? How was that navigating that?
Yeah, no, it was tough because you grow and you go on your own path, and some of you and your friends do grow apart.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm still, dealing with this to this day is relationships changing, and sometimes you realize that some relationships can have expiration dates. And so it's not that they may think that, oh, you are too much for me, but in the back of your mind, you may think that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You never want to burden your friends and like think, oh, this is the narrative I have for myself now, right?
But also, you don't want to go to the other extreme, which I feel like I'm the extreme where I'm like, I got it, don't worry about me, bye. I'll check
Literally,
it out.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of fought a lot of the battles like to myself in order to not burden others.
Yes.
But then it gets to the point where you're like, oh, now I pushed people away.
Yeah.
And now I don't want them to help because that's just how I'm set up. So with that, you move in different directions, and then you have to leave them behind.
Yeah.
Which is tough. And that's where some of the grief comes in as well, because just because somebody doesn't pass away doesn't mean that you can't miss that relationship.
Yeah, because they, it goes from talking a certain amount of time and like from spending time with them to nothing. Like, and they're still living, they're still doing their life, but yet they're not in your life anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to make new room and fill that space another way. Especially for like people who used to be in your life a lot. So it's tough. It is tough. But it's part of, I guess, adulting and part of growing. And maybe in the future, you may be in a better space to maybe reprehend those relationships, or be like, maybe it's for the best. Maybe this is how it's supposed to play out.
To be,
because sometimes we don't realize we have those memories forever, and maybe that's what we have to hold on to going forward, and then you make room for other relationships.
Exactly. And sometimes, like, when I know that, like, we hear the saying of like people come and go, right? But whenever the right person or a better person comes, is like we know how to handle that better, and we know how to keep that relationship going for longer.
Or it's a different dynamic, I think, as well. So where it used to be in like big doses, it may reduce to smaller, and who knows? Maybe, or a more mature relationship as well.
What are some boundaries that you have for yourself and for others now, like in your relationships? Like, for example, you said that if you used to go to the club, right, and now you go home early. Like that's one. Like what other ones do you have, like, for yourself, and some other ones for some people?
So I've had to like not let everybody in. Because I used to be like such an open book. So when you start to develop those boundaries, you start to be selective of who can be around your energy and who can have access to you. Exactly. Who has access to you, and who won't take advantage of your kindness or abandon you when times get tough, or look at you in a different way. Because your lifestyle is not the way it used to be. When things about you change. So with that maturing, you have to start, putting your distance in between you and others. And so that was a big, hard boundary that I had to put up. Because especially when it's people you love, you never want to be the one to be like, okay, maybe not anymore.
That's really, really tough.
It is really, really tough. Especially
because you don't want to burn bridges.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's not adding to your life, so we have to say goodbye.
Exactly, and it's tough because you think that that bridge is going to be there forever. Especially, and so you have to kind of make that tough decision, and with those new boundaries come, hard decision making. So that was the biggest boundary that I had to put up for sure.
Privacy.
Oh my God, yes, privacy. And another one is like social media presence. Like I used to be somebody who used to be so caught up in social media and posting, and now I've like pushed or back and don't post everything anymore. I'm barely on the so not posting my life anymore, as well as like another thing, privacy. Not everybody has to know everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially after you go through something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true.
That's actually good. Yeah, privacy, and that's something that I'm still reinforcing to this day.
Yeah.
How do you, talking about mental health, how do you protect your mental health while navigating social media's influence on life?
I'd say taking it in doses. I think the information that you take in is also very important. So I realize that like now the algorithm and what social media feeds me is more positive, to where I'm not, taking in negativity or things that aren't beneficial or productive to me and my growth. So that, and just taking the information that you want to take in from it. And what is actually beneficial for you.
I've been thinking about that recently, like how I want to deal with social media like now, because I feel like I'm a different person and I have a different goal when it comes to social media. And so I think don't be afraid to unfollow people. Don't be afraid to lose followers, especially if you have like recently I'm thinking about like the political stuff that is happening, like like don't be afraid to do so, to just let go of those people.
Detach.
Yeah. So what advice would you give those who feel lost or unsure about their mental health, their life? What can we do? What would you tell yourself, your younger self? What advice would you give him?
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't always have to have everything figured out. And your reputation, although it is important, it's not everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to give up our reputation, like our egos, put it in check, and like you're not always going to be at the top of the world, or you're not going to always have this high status to yourself, right? You are also going to have your hiccups and your stumbles and your low points and your rock bottoms. So don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it makes you look a certain way in the end. Because now, looking back at it, I'm so much happier with where I'm at. Having gone through everything that I went through. So
and to tie it back to like the people pleasing, you're never gonna 100% make everyone happy.
That part.
You're gonna be a villain in someone else's story, and just be okay with that, because you have no control over that. Let go of that pressure, because it's gonna consume you. So
that part, literally. And when you're not afraid of that anymore, of however you're painted and however you're perceived, it's out of your control, like you said, and it is what it is. You keep it pushing. So what do you think is something that you can take away from this kind of conversation, and like to take with you and like help you out?
You're the first guest that asks us back.
Oh really?
Yes.
Like no.
We're ready to go.
Yes. Okay, definitely the mental health for men. I feel like men nowadays like take that question or even therapy as like a weakness, as in I'm gonna be seen as weak, or that I'm not enough, or that I'm not man enough, whatever it is that goes through their mind, right? But how do you think we can, because you're a guy, how can we
start the conversation?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think it's you bringing it up as well. I think it's how they receive that suggestion. I think it's about being open-minded to it, and seeing like the possibilities and the benefits that it could have. So not so much in the way of like, how did I bring it up, or that I brought it up at all. I think just how I think it's our responsibility as men to be more receptive to that. And you're just trying to help, right? You wouldn't lead him astray, or you wouldn't suggest anything that you don't think wouldn't be helpful for him, especially if you think it would benefit your relationship and it would make him a better person as well. So I think it's more of a question for us.
One thing that I would take away, and it was a good reminder, is the family part. That parents can surprise us. And to have those tough conversations to keep pushing. Because I feel like it's been an ongoing journey for me trying to talk to my parents and be closer to them. And it's gotten better than like 2 years ago, I would say. But there's still so much more. So it was a good reminder of like, don't give up, Yessie. It's worth it. It's worth it. Your mom and your dad may surprise you. And they may be more receptive to learning than what I think, you know, they are. And so that's something that I'm taking away with me.
Yeah.
100%.
That is a good one too. Yeah. You know what? Thank you so much for like not being afraid to like tell us, to answer our questions. You know, like I said, you could have at any point told us like, hey, I don't want to go there or something. So I appreciate how open you were, and I'm grateful that you felt safe enough to speak here and Nenas Hangout, like how you truly feel about things. So I thank you for that. Honestly, we really, really appreciate that. And we value you.
Thank you.
We do.
I love
I hope you guys listening can take something from this conversation as well. So yes, thank you so much, and welcome to season 3 again. And comment, like, and subscribe.
Yes.
Bye.